Alright. Again, I'm back! The story begins in the world of One Piece. We're starting off not long after Kuma's death. Kuma dies, and there's this citizen who's dying of starvation, and they finally find a fruit, and in front of their eyes, it changes. It changes shape. Now, this starving person doesn't have time to go, oh, why did it just change shape? It's life or death at their current point. And so, they begin to eat this fruit. And after they eat it, they start to feel sick. They're in a lot of pain. They pass out. And when they wake up, they have, paws? Like, their hands have, those soft bits on paws. Let me Google what that is. He has paw pads on his hands for some reason. And that's when he looks up and he sees somebody about to attack him because, they're hungry too. And that's when he's trying to fight back against this person with the rock. And he ends up slapping them and they go flying. And as they go flying, that's when Naofumi starts to stand up. And you just see him vanish. He's gone. He's completely vanished. And Naofumi's like, what's going on? Keep in mind, his clothes are a bit raggy and stuff, but they're not homeless raggy. They're he's been outside for several days because of an issue or something raggy. And so he opens his eyes to see himself in some sort of room with a bunch of people standing around him. And next to him there's 3 other people, all seeming to be teenagers while he's late 20s, early 30s. And that's when they're all brought to the throne room. And that's when the king of Melremark looks down at them and sees Naofumi with his shield and says, how dare you be in my throne room? Get out. And Naofumi's like, huh? And that's when his advisor's actually you'll get backlash for this. You have to, let him stay and give him the same as the other heroes, or the backlash you will receive will be insane. And so the king's just like, ugh, fine. You can stay for now. He explains the current situation going on in Melremark, doesn't mention the rest of the world, just says Melremark is facing a dire crisis, that he needs help protecting his country, and so he summoned heroes from another world. And that's when Naofumi is just like, dang, interesting. But then he's also kind of jarred because he's like, another world? Excuse me? What do you mean another world? And so the king exasperatedly tells his advisor to explain it to Naofumi. And so he does, blah, blah, blah. Everybody tends to get a little bit better of a grasp on the whole situation. Then the king sends them off, to the room. And then the next day they all come back. A bunch of adventurers. Nobody chooses Naofumi. So Naofumi's by himself. And that's when the king's daughter, says, oh, I'll go with him. But Naofumi in this timeline has been living in a pirate world. And there's just something off about the whole thing. Especially when she's just randomly so willing all of a sudden. He's just like, I think I'll go by myself. I'll be fine. And the king's like, you dare refuse my daughter? Naofumi is like, well, yeah, because first of all, you already don't like me. So what does that say about your daughter, quote unquote? But I didn't even know her. It's just, I get not a single good feeling from her. And I'm going to trust my instincts. And that enrages the king. He throws him 10 gold coins and throws him out. Everybody else is kind of like, what was that about? But they kind of and the other heroes don't want to get involved because they don't want the same treatment or nothing. And so Naofumi just goes into the town. He ends up wandering around. And that's when he spots this blacksmith looking shop. He goes in. He's just like, wow, these are some good things. And that's when the guy, I forget his name 1 second. Earhart is just like, yo, do you need anything? And he's just like, actually, I could use some new clothes. Do you have anything? And he's just like, yeah, sure, I got you, man. It'll be 3 bronzes. And Naofumi's like, I only have gold if that's okay. He's just like, yeah, that's fine. I'll give you your change. Stuff like that. And so after all that, Naofumi then, moves on from where he currently is. He goes exploring and he looks at his system. He's like, okay, I'm going to need to level up. And so he continues on. He finds the forest, and that's when he starts boxing some fucking balloons. That's when he ends up remembering like his altercation at the beginning, where he's getting attacked with this rock and he slapped the guy. He was just gone. And that's when Naofumi is just like, is it possible I got a devil fruit power? And so that's when one of the balloons are jumping at him, and he slaps it, and it's just gone. Shit is gone. But the next thing you know, he has XP. He's just like, okay. So what I'm guessing happened was it went flying until it hit something. Okay, that makes sense. Now, then he does think about it. He's like, could I do that to myself? Now, Fumi puts that to the back of his mind for the time being. He returns back to the village, and he goes into the bar. Everybody's like offering to party up with him because they realize he's the shield hero who denied the help from the king. And now Fumi's like, nah, I'm good for now. And that's when, after leaving the building, he gets approached by this short little man. He's just like, I got some wares you might like. And now Fumi's like, huh? Okay, I guess. And so he follows the shady-ass guy. And he just sees people, monsters, all kinds of things just in cages. And that's when he's just like, okay, I already know this is slavery. And if I want to get anybody to help me on my mission to return home, because that is currently my goal, I need somebody cheap, because obviously I know these people are going to be giga expensive. And so he asks the slave trader to bring him to the cheapest place, and that's when he sees this little raccoon girl who's like coughing and stuff, and he remembers looking at a shield, and he saw like this thing about healing shield or medicinal shield, and you can probably learn how to heal her from that. And so he decides he'll buy her. I forget what the original price is, but we'll say 1 gold for the sake of the story. He buys her for 1 gold, and he ends up, getting the slave brand, blah, blah, blah. And that's when he leaves. He takes her with him. He ends up going back to the forest. He ends up getting, like, some leaves and stuff and feeding them to a shield. And he ends up grabbing a medicinal leaf, feeding it to a shield. And that's when he unlocks the herbal shield. Or the herbal shield, however you want to say the word. And this shield has ways of making medicine and stuff. And so he does so. He decides he's going to make some medicine, and that's when he's like, Raftalia, wake up. I know I've already skipped some introductions, so I'm sorry about that. This is my first shield hero. What if? Nah, I gotta find a groove, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's get back to the story. He's like, Raftalia, wake up. And he sits her up and feeds her the medicine. And she's like, it's bitter. He's like, good medicine is always bitter. And so Raftalia is then like, oh, okay. And then ends up falling back to sleep, waking up from nightmares. Now Fumi comforts her. Simple things like that. It remains relatively canonical right now. I would say it remains canonical. I would say even past the two-headed Cerberus, because for that, I plan on having him still not, hit it away or anything, because he wants Raftalia to get over her fear. And so it remains canonical until after the first wave, or until about the first wave, sorry. The first wave is where things begin to change. He realizes Loot Village is in danger. He goes to Loot Village with Raftalia, and that's when, the bigger skeletons, he was bitch slapping them, bitch slap after bitch slap, and they just went flying. And the smaller skeletons, him and Raftalia ran through, her jumping on a shield, him airstrike shielding, stuff like that, boxing them all up. And he actually has almost no problem doing all this. And that's when the soldiers arrive and just start raining fire. And he's just like, what are you guys doing? I cleared out the village of all the monsters. You just burned down a village for no reason? You didn't check to see if there's anybody still here? If anybody was injured? What the fuck is your guys' problem? And he gets really rotted, and Raftalia is actually about to take out her sword, but he's like, nah, we'll just let the monsters get him. And then they walk away, and that's when one of the big skeletons attack, blah blah. They end up killing the big skeleton after Raftalia helps save them. And then he's just like, you guys can stay and help and fix your guys' mess, or you guys can go help the hero. Only two of them end up leaving while the rest stay and help Naofumi put out the fires and stuff like that. And that's when they're all back to the throne room. The king tries to give Naofumi less than the other heroes, but the other heroes actually stick up for Naofumi this time. It's just like, yo, what do you mean you're giving him less money this time? That doesn't make any sense. He protected an entire village by himself. Even your soldiers began destroying the village, from what I've heard, so I don't really get what exactly you're doing. And the king, feeling a little bit pressed about all three other heroes kind of like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? He's just like, fine, you can have your deserved money, but don't expect anything else from me. And the other heroes is like, what is this guy's problem with each other? And Naofumi's like, no problem. And he takes off Talia and he dips from the castle. The slave trader hits him up. He's just like, I don't know. He's just like, I got a gotcha egg. He's like, alright, bet. Stuff like that. He ends up getting a filial. It remains relatively canonical. Loot Village actually doesn't try to get stolen in this timeline because there was no reason to. They didn't hate Naofumi except for like the king. Nobody else interacted with him, so it's fine. Mine kind of hates Naofumi because he rejected her. But outside of that, things aren't really pushing for that kind of scenario. So he ends up with his filial. It grows up. It can drag a carriage, stuff like that. And so he leaves. Loot Village in this timeline just gave him a carriage anyway because he helped save them all. And after leaving, Naofumi's just kind of like, what do I do now? And so he just kind of explores the country as a whole, fixing up problems the other heroes caused. And that's when he ends up just continuing on past like the border into the next country, and then into the country after that. And that's when he enters like a country of demi-humans. He's just like, okay, things are starting to get a bit much. And that's when he actually ends up running into the Queen of Melremark. And just by seeing the shield on his arm, she immediately goes over to Naofumi. It's just like, are you Naofumi Iwatani? And Naofumi's like, yeah, that would be me. And the queen's just like, would you mind coming back with me to Melremark? He's just like, hell no, that piece of shit king treats me terribly. And she's just like, I know, that's why I need you to head back. I'm the queen and he's taking advantage of the authority he has. I didn't even leave the country in his hands to begin with, but the guy who I did died during the first wave. And Naofumi's kind of like understanding. He's just like, I bet. And he's thinking to himself, worst case scenario, I bitch slap a few people. And so he goes with her. And honestly, the king and mine aren't really both put on trial. It's really just the king for the poor treatment of one of the heroes, which is considered treason, we'll say, in this timeline. But he doesn't even come close to being executed. He just was stripped of all authority and stuff like that. So he's now technically just a peasant. And Naofumi is content with this result, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm kind of speedrunning this what if, I admit. But I just don't know. I need to rewatch Shield Hero, I think, because I'm definitely missing a bunch of details I could definitely go in more depth about. Yeah, I think I'll have this as a part 1, rewatch Shield Hero, and then drop more. Another 14-minute video, just like the Sinbad Luffy. But I'm just kind of testing the waters on part 1s of these what ifs to see what you guys think. If you guys don't like them, I'll probably not make any more. But if you guys do, I'll probably rewatch the animes, except for One Piece. That one is purely just to see if you guys like One Piece or the detail. This one is to see if you guys like Shield Hero, and I'll know about the detail or not when I look at the One Piece what ifs thing. But yeah, no, that's it for this part. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.